If you'd have asked me what finger I thought would have the most units a season ago, I would have probably said the thumb, or maybe even the pinky. I would not have said the ring. But here we are now, with 2 new ring units from the School of Fauvism, making 6 ring IDs, making them the greediest finger so far. The 2 new Fauvist IDs are Bleed and Sinking. They boast high damage and good status infliction, and the Limbus company's strongest furry identities, not counting the high show. They, similar to the House of Spiders ring identities, have an absurd amount of ring related buffs, making sure the ring beats the Blood Fiends in the Great Roar Bleed. And in this video, we will go over why this is the case by analysing their kits, how they want to be played, and a new team building section at the end. So for our first identity, let's start the lower ranked and much simpler, Ring Fauvist Student Assault. Assault is a Bleed and Sinking identity, who wants to stack as many negative effects as possible, including the new Fauvist exclusive effect, Mauled Colour Rouge, to gain as many buffs as possible. Starting with Mauled Colour Rouge, this effect can stack up to 9, inflicts 1 bleed potency on hit for every 3 Mauled Colour Rouge, and inflicts defense level down for every 4 stacks, and then decreases by 1 at turn end. This effect is very good at inflicting bleed potency and defense level down to maximise the damage done. He inflicts this effect from his passive, applying 1 stack on hit with base skill or his skill 3, which we'll talk about later. If he inflicts 10 plus Mauled Colour, he gains Fairy Form, which gives him more damage every 3 Mauled Colour, not specifically red or rouge, on the target, inflicting 1 more bleed or sinking potency, and inflicting 2 bleed count if they have no bleed once per turn. When Rodion uses Critique, which we'll also talk about later when we go over Rodion, he gains Imperfections Addressed. This buff will give him 10% more damage, and it will allow him to heal 3 SP with each Critique coin reuse once per turn. His combat passive requires 4 Lust and allows him to inflict +1 Mauled Colour in Fairy Form, and he heals 5 SP when 4 Mauled Colour is inflicted twice per turn, and if he is at max SP he will gain 1 blunt damage a turn instead. Moving on to his skills, his skill 1, Rough Betrayal, is simple with 2 coins, a max roll of 15, with negative effect based damage conditionals and applying 2 bleed, 1 bleed count, and 1 sinking count. His skill 2, Visceral Strokes, has 3 coins, a max roll of 23, damage conditionals based on negative effects with the skill inflicting 2 bleed count, and 2 sinking. His skill 3, the Fauvism Reveal Submission, has 3 coins, but will re-roll the 3rd coin if the target has 5 plus Mauled Colour, not just Rouge, or Meursault is below 50% HP. Just want something to note, this coin is included in the clashing, so it doesn't just re-roll when you use the skill, so the numbers will be involved in the clashing. If this is true, you will also randomly inflict bleed or sinking potency based on Mauled Colour divided by 3 on the target. His max roll is 21 and 25 with the re-roll, with high damage conditionals based on negative effects. With the reroll, the skill inflicts 3 bleed, 2 sinking, 4 bleed count, 4 sinking count, and 2 Mauled Colour Rouge. That is a lot of count for both sinking and bleed, which makes the skill very good at applying count, and the skill also does surprisingly high damage with the damage conditionals and his rerolls. His defense skill is a simple 2 coin clashable counter that has a max roll of 16, inflicting 1 bleed and 1 sinking. Overall, he has a simple identity in comparison to his master, but leans much more into his bleed side, but does high damage, inflicts very good potency, and has a very high damage skill 3. For his playstyle, he doesn't really need any special play. You want to inflict as much Mauled Colour Rouge as possible to get Fairy Form, but that will come from just using his skills. You do need 4 Lust, and make sure his skill 3 gets the coin reused to maximise this, but with the Ring team and Rodion, these become very easy to do. Now let's move on to the much higher ranked and much more complex Ring Fauvist Docent Rodion. Rodion is also a bleed and sinking identity, who also likes stacking as much negative effects as humanly possible while greatly expanding on the Fauvism exclusive effects, adding Mauled Colour Blue, Touchy Hardy, yes I'm going to call it this the entire video, I can't pronounce it, and Pellet Vibrant, while taking Meursault's Mauled Colour Rouge for herself as well. Going through these effects, Mould Colour Blue is sinking Mould Colour Rouge, replacing the bleed potency with sinking potency, while making the target lose 5 SB at a 5+ stack or decreasing once a turn end. Touchy Hardy is red and blue concussion, making the target take 10% more HP and SB damage due to bleed and sinking for each stack, with a max stack of 2. Palette Vibrant is a lot of words and numbers, so feel free to pause and read if you want the details, but it increases ring ID damage based on the stack, which maxes at 4, gives you even more damage up if you're a Fauvism ID, and it randomly inflicts 1 bleed potency or count, sinking potency or count, but at turn end, this effect expires, halving all mood colour on the target. Moving on to our first passive, at combat end, you inflict Palette Vibrant to enemies who have both mood colours and Touchy Hardy simultaneously. For each 3 stacks of each mood colour type the target has, an extra stack of Palette Vibrant is inflicted. She also has a Furry form, which you can get from one of these conditionals, being inflicting Palette Vibrant 3 times. It only counts once per turn, so 3 separate turns of infliction need to happen. Use your enhanced defense skill critique twice, more on that later, or use your enhanced skill 3 once, also more on that later. Her Furry form gives her +1 min and max speed, making her inflict 1 more sinking or bleed potency, and also inflicting +1 bleed or sinking count if the target has 3+ of mood colour red or blue respectively. Her second passive grants her a stack of Homage for each ring student identity on the team once per encounter. Homage has a max stack of 3 and makes Rodion randomly gain 1 offense or defense level for each stack. She also applies a number of ring students' offense level or defense level to any 2 ring student identities, prioritizing Fauvism students, Meursault. Her combat passive requires 2 Lust Resonance, and she inflicts +1 mood colour and Touchy Hardy, which is very good and very easy to get on the ring team. Finally, moving on to her skills. Her skill 1, Vehement Overpainting, is a single coin skill, rerolls both seeing a max roll of 17 while clashing and 22 of reroll. It has negative effect based conditionals and 20% more damage if the target has Palette Vibrant, which goes for all of her skills. She will reuse the coin once if the target has 4+ negative effects, leading to 2 bleed count, 2 sinking and 2 more colour rouge being applied. Her skill 2, Expression of Primary Colours, has 2 coins and a max roll of 24, with high negative effect damage conditionals, the same Palette Vibrant conditional as skill 1, and 20% more damage if the target has 2 different types of mood colour. It inflicts 2 bleed, 2 sinking count, 1 mood colour rouge, and 3 mood colour blue, and if the target has 5+ negative effects, 1 Touchy Hardy. Her skill 3-1, Le Fauvism, the Chainment Brutal, has a max roll of 24 and has a negative effect and Palette Vibrant based damage conditionals. The skill inflicts 2 bleed, 4 bleed count, 2 sinking, 2 more colour rouge, and 3 more colour blue, and 2 Touchy Hardy, with 1 being applied only if the target has 5+ negative effects. Her skill 3-2, Burst Forth the pulsing crimson under your skin, is used instead if the target has 6+ negative effects. It is now an unfocused volley attack with a weight of 3. It shares the same max roll and damage conditionals, but now has unbreakable coins and even higher damage on set conditionals. It is unfocused volley, but the 4th coin will hit all targets for very high damage. The skill itself applies 3 bleed, 4 bleed count, 3 sinking, 1 mood colour rouge, and 4 mood colour blue. To move on to our defense skills, Trimming the Medium is a clashable counter with 2 coins and a max roll of 15. It has Palette Vibrant damage conditionals, and the skill itself applies 1 bleed and 1 sinking, inflicting 1 extra mood colour if the target did not have any before the skill was used. If the target has 3+ negative effects and Rodion does not have Reflection, she will use Critique instead. Critique is another clashable counter with 1 coin that can reroll twice. On Clash her max roll is 17, and on skill use her max roll is 19. It has damage conditionals based on negative effects and Palette Vibrant. She will inflict 1 bleed, 1 sinking, and 1 type of mood colour for each coin randomly, and 1 Touchy Hardy if she got max rerolls. She will then gain Reflection at skill end. Reflection allows her to heal 5 SP at turn end, while decreasing by 1 at turn end. When this effect runs out, she will gain Homage equal to ring student identities on the field. She is not able to use Critique while having Reflection. This clashable counter is very good with the rerolls and will do quite high damage. She will also apply a good amount of mood colour and Touchy Hardy, as it stacks quite well with the +1 application combat passive, which she is probably guaranteed to get as Critique is Lust. Rodion is a very good ID that messes with a lot more of the ring Fauvism uniqueness in Meursault, but has a much greater payoff if these are in play. The most interesting part of her kit for me is her counter Critique and how much you want to use it. Obviously if used twice she'll get Fairy form, which is something you're going to want as it applies great buffs. But I think to unlock Fairy Form, the easiest way will just be to use your enhanced skill 3, as you should be able to get a skill 3 within into like turn 3, and by turn 3 you should have an enemy that has 6+ negative effects. I do think you should be using Critique as a replacement for a skill 1 or skill 2, as I think Critique is just better than either of those. And if you don't have a skill 3 by turn 4, if you're unlucky, then by using Critique twice, you'll be able to get a Fairy Form instead. So I think, apart from that, she just really likes the negative effects, so make sure you stack a bunch of negative effects. One last thing, so combat passive is very important, so you need to try and make sure you have a lost rate of 2 all the time, but at least when you use Critique. It's better with Critique, because Critique applies 1 mood colour 3 times, so you're basically getting double the mood colour, as it adds 1 every time. If you do it off that skill, like a skill 3, you'll get more mood colour, but you'll get less mood colour than her Critique, because it's just 3+1 compared to 1+1 times 3. But it's only 2 lust res, so you shouldn't even have to think, you should just have it all the time, especially in the bleed team. But other than that, Rodion just likes to use her skills and do big damage, while inflicting a boatload of negative effects, just like Meursault. Welcome to the team building section of the video. So I'm just on this random website because I actually do not have the new IDs, mostly because I'm saving for Rodion, who's going to be the best ID in the game. I said it here. But this site works just as well. On this team building section, I put I think the best ID for each channel will be in the team. Though some of these I wouldn't put on the team. So first of all, let's start with the core identities, which are all the ring units apart from Otis. Obviously with all the ring units, there's a lot of synergy. They all do bleed, and they're all very good at doing bleed. Like if you've seen some of the new teams play, they have like 20 bleed stacks without using any Sanguine Desire. And if you do use Sanguine Desire, it's going to be even bigger. And the reason why I said no to Otis is because she's still good. I still consider running her, but she is a 2-star, and she's kind of bad, just not at the same par of all the other ring IDs. Her only notable thing is a very high bleed count S2 in a team that does not need bleed count. She doesn't clash well, she doesn't do too much damage. And there's another side effect where she actually, having 6 ring units on the same team is kind of bad for ring Nurse Father Honglu, who's your best unit, because it makes him bring out closing time a little too early, where he hasn't scaled up. We are like 2 potency, really low damage, it won't get as much value as it normally would. So that's a bad thing. For my so we've got 5 IDs. For my 2 more IDs that will fit the team quite well, I'd go to 2 Kurokuma units. It's just, there's 2 slots left. Kurokuma Duo, they're probably the best non-ring or Blood Fiend IDs for bleed, so I think that's quite easy. But if you want to run Otis, you can. Maybe one of the Kurokuma Duos. If you want, you can run Blood Fiends in this team. I think the ring and Blood Fiends don't mix, It doesn't mean Blood Fiends are bad though. If you look through my guide, there actually wasn't a passive that said Blood Fiends are now 10 times worse. Blood Fiends are still just as good as they were before these units released. So if you want to use Blood Fiends, use Blood Fiends. Nothing's stopping you. But this is a ring video, so I'll keep talking about the ring. And the reason Sinclair has no slot is because Sinclair has no bleed IDs. You should never be running Sinclair. Unless you might be doing some poise bleed shenanigans with Renclair, but you need like support passes to make that work. It's not very worth it to do. And whatever you do, you need to run Rodion and Meursault together, because they benefit a lot from playing with each other. In Meursault's case, he gains a lot more buffs from Rodion. Imperfections Addressed, all the ring student buffs, all the ring buffs. So he really appreciates having her. She also gives him some Mood Colour Rouge, which will help him fulfill some of the conditionals. But what I think Rodion relies on Meursault a lot more than Meursault relies on her. She is the better unit with higher highs, but you can see that her kit has been adjusted to account for Meursault. Because if you look at her numbers, the basic numbers for her mood colours, you'll see that she does a lot more Mood Colour Blue than she does Mood Colour Rouge, despite being a more bleedy unit. And that's probably because she was designed with Meursault in mind, where he's going to be applying a lot of the Rouge, not a lot of the Rouge, but he's going to be applying Rouge, so her numbers would decrease because of that. She is also a lot more reliant on Mood Colour conditionals than Meursault is, so he will help Rodion a lot, and that's why you have to kind of run them in the same team. But apart from that, that's basically the team explained. For Ego, the only one I can think of is Sanguine Desire, because it's Sanguine Desire. If you're for some reason running Blood Fiends, go Yearning Michaela. But that's about it for the team. That's about it for the video too. And goodbye everyone. So I hope you liked the video. this is just an ending section where I'm just going to talk a little bit. First of all, most importantly, remember to like and subscribe. I'm sure you already have because you love my content, but some people clearly haven't, so go ahead with that. Please comment too. Just comment anything. You know, you can comment your critiques in the video, comment if you like the video. Just start randomly talking and saying stuff in the comments. It's all appreciated. And I wanted to do the talk about this, especially for my last video, which if you haven't watched it, you should, because it goes over the other 2-ring IDs and who you should know about to make a good team. But apart from that, I'm very grateful for the fact that video did quite well. I think by the time I'm recording this, it's about 2.5k views, and I'm at like 30 subscribers now. And that made my week, just seeing all the comments and the views, all the nice comments too. You know, a lot of people saying they love the video. So I'm hoping this one does as well. There's no reason why it shouldn't. And also comment if you have any video ideas you want me to do. I was thinking of maybe doing a mirror dungeon guide, or more recently making a blood fiend guide, because, you know, to repent for my sins of doing 2-ring unit videos in a row. But yeah, that's now it's about it. Right, see you, love you, goodbye.